So attraction, everything is that. And it's happening whether you know that it is or not. So attracting just is. You've got a vibration going on. The law of attraction is reading your vibration and matching it with things like it. Attraction. Deliberate creation is deliberately focusing for the purpose of attracting what you intend. And allowing is being good at deliberate creation. That's all. Deliberate allowing is just being good at focusing as a function of life, as a function of beingness. It's a response to vibrational offering, and every consciousness is vibrationally offering. It's a across-the-board, equal opportunity response to vibration. It's a matching mechanism. Let's clarify in this way. So attraction just is. Deliberate creation is you focusing. Receiving or allowing is a state of being. The receptive mode or the allowing mode is a state of being. Let's call deliberate creation the verb, and let's call reception or allowing the response to that is a state of being. Now you could say, I intend to be in the receiving mode by deliberately focusing or by deliberately creating. But we don't need to get too technical about any of this. The attraction part's across the board. So step one is asking, and that's what life does. In other words, you can't not ask. So we wouldn't call the asking all that deliberate, because asking is a response to life. So the asking in the question that you're asking wouldn't be the answer to that. The step one wouldn't be that. Step two is source's response, and so that's not really your part. And so step three, which is the allowing, is where deliberate creation steps in. In other words, I intend to be deliberate about what I think. I intend to pre-pave and get out ahead of it and meditate. I intend to think thoughts deliberately. I intend to look for the best feeling thought that I can find because I want the emotional response that accomplishes. We put step three as a really important priority because step one and two just happen whether you know that they are or not. And step three is where you really get involved. And so step three is where it matters to you how you feel. You care about how you feel. And so step three is really what requires the greatest focusing. Step one and two, you never even need to know about them, but you are born wanting to feel good. And your life experience sort of takes you away from that. Other people distract you. They say it's more important to you to do what makes me feel good than to do what makes you feel good. When we talk about encouraging you to be selfish, we're not encouraging you to be selfish at the attempted exclusion of other people receiving the satisfaction of their own selfishness. We don't mean that at all, because you don't have that power, first of all, and you don't have that non-physical intention. When you are really in the receiving mode, meaning you are really tuned to the selfish, meaning perspective of self, meaning tuned to what the big part of self is focused upon. You're really tuned to the emotional gap between the non-physical you and the physical you. When you're really tuned to that, you are including the well-being of all that is. In other words, you cannot separate your personal selfishness, because you can't accomplish that unless you're connected to source energy. You cannot separate your personal selfishness for things that you care about from your personal selfishness about wanting to uplift all others too. Sometimes when we say we teach you to be selfish, people think, oh, you just want me to get what I want for me and never mind anybody else. It isn't that way at all. We're talking about your eternal, all-inclusive consideration of all. That's big. That's big. You see, what you're after here is, what should I most give my attention to? And you know what? It's a dynamic thing, because every moment's a little different. At every moment, there are a different combination of vibrations surrounding you. And in every moment, you are in some different relationship to your broader perspective. So if we were standing in your physical shoes, this would be our predominant intention. And here's why. Our predominant intent would be our awareness of the gap between what our inner being knows we want and therefore wants and is in vibrational sync with and where we stand in this current moment. We would always have our vibrational, emotional attention or eyes upon the closing of that gap. Because as we said earlier, life itself is going to open the gap. Step one's going to happen. So you don't have to set that as a goal. I'm going to go out today and I'm going to make as much trouble for myself as possible in order to fill my vortex full of stuff. We would never set that as an intention. That kind of stuff is coming in response to what you've already got cooking over here. And step 2 isn't your work anyway. And step 3 is your awareness of how you're feeling. In other words, that's that closing that gap awareness, caring about how you feel, using the most powerful emotional guidance system. Oh, what a system that is. To have source energy, your inner being, radiating a constant signal of who you are, never ceasing to offer that vibration, and you letting your every breath and your every thought and your every intention be about syncing with that, syncing with that, syncing with that. Do you ever take out your cell phone and say, I hope I don't have a signal? Do you ever turn on your airport and your computer and say, oh, I hope there's no signal? Or are you aware of a signal that you want to connect to? You want connectivity. And why? Broader experience, you say. Choosing a feeling. And then finding the thoughts that calibrate to that feeling. That was big. In fact, you could say, you know how we say all the time about thoughts turning to things, and we're talking about the manifestation? Well, let's just be really accurate about this. Thoughts turn to emotions, and the emotion is a manifestation. It's a manifestation of. There's no such thing as absence of desire. You're born with desire. What you're wanting to call absence of desire is lack of focus is the closest that we could get to it, but it's really not that. It's focusing against. It's not lack of focus. It's focusing in opposition to what's real. If it is true, and it is, that your vortex is the real deal, that is where all the action is where your inner being is, and it's where the law of attraction is most predominantly responding because there's so much attention there. So if you are not focused upon your vortex, and you are focused anywhere else, you might want to call that absence of desire. We wouldn't. We'd call it sloppy thinking or sloppy focus or letting what is dominate our thought process. Consider this. Every thought that has ever been thought still exists. None of them disappear or dissipate. They all continue to exist. The question is, how much attention is being given to them, and how much is any one focuser perpetuating the thought? That's all. So every thought that ever has been thought still exists. The question is, what am I as a personal focuser doing to perpetuate the momentum of such a thought in my experience? And if I'm focused on my vortex, I'm not perpetuating any of the other. We want to say it in a different way. And we say it all the time that you have enough desire in your vortex to keep you busy for 20 or 30 lifetimes. The reason we say that to you is because we want you to realize that you don't need to go around looking for desires. They're happening naturally. We want you to realize it's not the number of them or even the hierarchy of them in terms of how much less that I care about them. It's the exhilaration of getting to mold them into place. It sort of falls into the same category that we tease you about if you're eating a wonderful meal in a restaurant. Even though there are lots of other wonderful restaurants around, you're usually not feeling lack about not being at all the other places eating all of the food at the same time because you're satisfied with the food that you're eating. And so it really does not matter what object of attention is ringing your bells. What matters is that your bells are ringing. And we want to say to you, and the talking to you about how many desires you have and how long they'll last. Maybe we've put you off on a sort of wild goose chase, because what we really want to say to you is that you will always have the potential of your bells ringing, and your bells ringing is what you want. The process is what you want. There is nothing more exhilarating than to live life and pick up an idea of something that you desire. And it feels awkward and weird at first because it was born out of who knows what. But as you focus upon it and allow it to become more, it calls you in a stronger way because your inner being is already there. And then once you get a bead on that signal and you become really good at focusing because you care about feeling good in the direction of that, and then you get to witness the emotional changes, the feeling of interest and the feeling of exhilaration and the feeling of expansion. You get to feel more inner being like. You get to feel, because of this desire, you get to feel more of the wholeness that your inner being is already feeling. It's like you're coming more into life. It's like you're yawning more of what is life-giving into yourself. And each time you do that, there's greater clarity and greater capacity to understand and greater capacity to acknowledge and greater capacity to observe and greater capacity to feel and greater capacity to live, which just perpetuates greater capacity and greater capacity. And there's no ending to that, you see. And so it's not the number of things you're creating, it's the being in this perpetual state of creation. A creator must create, you see. Yeah. Maybe what you're calling absence of desire is once you taste that, nothing else will do. And so when you felt like that, when you don't feel like that, you might be tempted to say, I've got absence of feeling like that because I don't feel like that. But you've always got the potential in a heartbeat of feeling like that. In other words, once you get the hang of this, once you reach this place where you've experienced that often enough that you know that it's within your immediate ability to accomplish, if not immediate, eventual, but you know you can do it, then negative emotion doesn't get you down. You realize it's just part of the process, and oh, good. In other words, it wasn't the absence of beautiful treasures. It was the opportunity of attracting so many more, you see. And that's how life is for all of you all the time. So, me first. But what is me first? Me first means me and me. Ooh, that's a big me. That's a big me because it's a we. Me first means me and source. Me, we, me, we. And think about that. Oh, let's go there. Let's go there. This is really, 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 really good. It's attraction, 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 yes? Your inner being has got it going on. Do you believe that? And your inner being is so about you. One who is connected to the source is more powerful than millions who are not. So when you include yourself as we with your inner being, your attraction power is enormous. Since it's attraction, 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 you could call your society we, and you could attract on behalf of your society. You could attract on behalf of those in this arena. We. It's we. Is this putting that selfishness into a new perspective for you? When you include yourself with who you really are. So now as you say, it's me first, you mean we first. You mean me, myself, and I. You mean me, us. You mean we, this, who I was before I was born and all that I've become ever since. We. You can attract on behalf of the world. You can assist the world in all things wanted. You can tap into the collective conscious vortices. You are powerful beyond your ability to understand, you see. But you gotta love yourself enough to let yourself be that kind of we. And then your focus matters so much. And you can watch tides change and world events change and things happen and things, in other words, that's influence at its best, you see.